For a lot of us who have lawns, right? The question is self-titled today. It's, are you growing grass or are you killing weeds? Or both, or either. There's an old devotional I was reading based on this text from a pastor in Minneapolis, and Pastor Anderson, and he was talking about how at his suburban Minneapolis home, for a number of years, it was just, the weeds had just taken over the place. And so he called Chem Lawn, right? Called Chem Lawn. And Chem Lawn, you know, which usually they pride themselves on doing these miracles with their lawn. Chem Lawn took a look at his lawn and they said, we won't do it. They rejected him. Your lawn is so bad, we ain't doing it. Talk about rejection, right? And the chemicals don't even go. And so then a retired farmer in the congregation pulled him aside and said, you know, Pastor, if you concentrate on growing the grass will probably over time take care of the weeds. And he was sort of doubtful. Okay. And so he watered and he fertilized and kind of did the things you're supposed to. And over the course of several seasons, he noticed the grass was beginning to take over. And when the grass was fertilized and nurtured, the grass came into its own and did okay. And he mentioned that story based on this text, and I mentioned it now this morning, because what's the point that Jesus is saying in this parable? You know, parable, the word comes from laying aside. Parable means laying aside, with the idea of comparison. Lay something aside and compare it. And so Jesus is talking parable, and most of us learned that when we were kids, right? A parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. Yes, it's there. I think I could mark that catechism back there. It's cool. And so Jesus is using a very common experience, certainly for everybody in his age in that agrarian society, but also for us when we work our lawns and our gardens and whatever. But Jesus' point seems to be, he explains it to his disciples, and he explains the symbols of all the allegory. He's telling his disciples, you know what? Concentrate on what is good. Occupy yourself with the good things, and the evil things will diminish. Feed yourself. Feed the good things that are happening in life. Feed righteousness. Nurture. Feed. Okay? And so the point, remember, we don't want to overwork parables. Parables usually just have one point, and that seems to be the point of this particular parable. And maybe by comparison, when you do focus on weeds, I think an example, at least in my mind, is I've read a number of articles through the years about what happens. Well, remember, a lot of us will remember that when people had sinus infections and allergies, they would send them away. Where did they send them? Arizona. Because it was so dry, there was no pollen, there were many fewer things to be allergic to, and so literally there were colonies almost of displaced people from the rest of the country who went to the Southwest to breathe better. But of course, when they got there, they looked at their yards full of cactus and scrub and sagebrush, and they said, what is this stuff? What are these weeds? I don't want these in my front yard. I want a front yard like I had back in Chicago or back in Ohio. You know, I want a night, and they started planting, you know, Kentucky bluegrass and timothy and all these wonderful things, which took way more water than there was available. And if you've ever heard about what's happening in Phoenix these days, is, have you ever met somebody from the Southwest, or some of you go there, some of you love the Southwest, and you say, this is very appropriate as we're all sitting here in a hot Chicago summer day,